HBOT. You got to look at nature's miracle solution.
Yeah.
Oxygen
We're
plus
both huge
atmospheric
fans.
pressure. It's my favorite one. I mean, I've done sauna and red light and cold plunge, and I've done peptides, and I've done mesenchymal stem cells and all this stuff. HBOT, it's just nature. It's just nature.
Just more oxygen.
Where there's oxygen, cancer cannot thrive, inflammation cannot thrive. And one of the problems, if you've got a bad knee, a bad shoulder, you've got head issues, you most likely have hypoxia because of the scar tissue, because of the lack of blood flow, which you need, right? Your lymphatic system working, blood pressure proper. The lack of blood flow, you can't get oxygen to those areas that are damaged. What her mom most likely got through the pressure and through that 92, 95% oxygen density was oxygen finally getting to the brain, helping it to repair. Welcome, everybody. Today, we have a very special guest, Lisa Tamati, who is a professional ultra endurance athlete, a motivational speaker, integrative health consultant specializing in functional medicine, and runs her own podcast, and really an all-around leader of how to perform and find success in your life. And I am so excited for her to share her story and talk about how you in your athletic career and your athletic needs or desires can fix your gut, optimize your health, and go after your dreams within your athletic performance. Lisa, thank you so much for being here today.
It's wonderful to be on your show. Real honor. Thanks, Dane. Really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. And I was, one of the things that really grabbed me to this is, my own background. I know a lot of listeners out there are people who are athletes, ex-athletes, long distance runner, triathlon runner, CrossFit runner. I want to get in the best shape of my life, but every time I exercise, I feel worse. I can't get out of bed. I get more blood in the stool. I get more cramping and gas. My skin reacts. My knees are so inflamed. The arthritic pains from this autoimmune reaction are killing me. Mm-hmm. This is a common problem we find. As someone who's pushed above and beyond what the human body can do in athletic endurance, I think I'm really excited to dive in and hear your experience and how you were able to optimize your health while chasing those dreams.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is right up my alley because I absolutely, so for those listening, I did ultra marathons. So that's anything over sort of, 50, 100 mile, 200 kilometer, 300 kilometer races across deserts and in the Sahara and, the Gobi Desert and Himalayas all over the planet, right? Mm-hmm. And I never had any talent whatsoever and didn't have a lot of skills, but I was very determined. I had one thing, which we talk about later, and that's mindset, right, to do something. Yeah. And when I was doing this, at the beginning, I started because I wanted to lose weight. I started running to lose weight, like a lot of young ladies, right? Mm-hmm. And that didn't work, actually. The further I ran, the fatter I got. And we can talk about why later. So I always struggled with all of this. So there was massive, from doing the sport that I did, mm-hmm. I actually did a lot of damage to my body, right? The inflammation that came out, the leaky gut, that when you run an ultra marathon, you are going to have leaky gut, right? You are going to cause all sorts of problems.
Wow. The stress.
Yeah, huge.
And one of the questions, I know we have a jump, I want to dive into your story and really get into what you went through and how that affected your body. But I think what I want everyone to really ask themselves is it the health and performance industry? Is it the health or performance industry? Yeah. Because it seems like there's a line with bodybuilding, with running, with CrossFit, where am I actually increasing my longevity, my body's health, my organ function, my labs getting better? And you already said the first part. If you are doing long distance running, you have leaky gut. Wow, what a statement to dive into. Yep. Before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your story, about, we know you got into athletics, did these 50, 100-mile races. How did you get into that? And how did that affect your health? When did you start noticing that this is a problem?
Yeah, so I did it for 25 years. So I started, quite young. I started doing extreme sort of adventure stuff. So I've done a lot of expeditions as well as races, right? Crossing the Libyan desert, an illegal crossing of the Libyan desert. Won't go into that story. You'll have to read my first book for that one. That was pretty extreme. I had a boyfriend in my early 20s who was really into this extreme sort of lifestyle. So we spent years, cycling around the planet, climbing mountains, kayaking, canoeing, doing all of that sort of good stuff. And then the relationship broke up actually in the middle of the Libyan desert. He abandoned me in the middle of this 250 kilometer crossing. Ladies, not a good time. And I won't go into the background of that story because
I'm
it's
over you.
massive.
You guys are in the middle of a desert. Like, where are you going?
Exactly. It
Oh
was
my
life and death. It
gosh.
was actually life and death situation. We only had 2 liters of water a day, and
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so that was a pretty traumatic experience, shall we
Yeah.
say? And after that experience, though, and then I split up with him, and he, of course, was my partner in crime as far as pushing the limits and doing lots of adventures. And when I did the crossing of the Libyan desert, I pushed my body so hard it took me 2 years to recover. Like, I had massive nerve damage in my upper body from carrying 35-kilo backpacks when I'm only like 58 kilos, and I had kidney problems. My kidneys were massively damaged from the dehydration and so on and so forth. So it took me 2 years to recover from that, and
2 years.
took me a lot longer to recover from the boyfriend. But what happened after that is that I wanted to keep having adventures because I love adventure, right? I love pushing the limits, and it's the title of my podcast. I love finding out what I'm capable of and having, life is for living, right? And so I heard about this race in Morocco. It was 240 Ks across the Moroccan Sahara. And I thought, wow, this is something that I could maybe do. I'd never done an ultra marathon before, but I'd done all of these extreme events, expeditions and stuff. So I thought, I reckon I could do this. And it was touted as the toughest race on earth at the time.
Wow.
And this was a 7-day event. You had like 700 runners from all around the planet. And it was the most incredible experience, most uplifting experience, really tough, but I did really, really well. And then I realized, hang on a minute, I'm quite good at this. I'm not fast, but I could go long, right?
Yeah.
And I could push myself to the extreme, and nothing was ever going to be as extreme as the ex-boyfriend had been. So it was always like, relatively speaking, this is a piece of cake,
Yeah.
And it wasn't a piece of cake, but it was a hell of a lot easier than crossing the Libyan desert, right? And so that's what got me into the sport. And then I just loved the people and loved the challenge and got into it. And as I went through, I was an asthmatic for starters. So my whole childhood had been marred with asthma attacks and in and out of hospital. I had a very small lung capacity. So I had real problems also related to gut health, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't have asthma now because I've, managed to work out my gut health, and that is a big part of asthma. So I started to do one ultra marathon after the other. And when I was young, that was okay. My body sort of handled it, right? But as I got older and into my 30s and then into my 40s, my body started to really crash and sort of fight back. And I remember I did a run right through New Zealand, so my country. I did 2,250 kilometers in 42 days, raising money for charity. So like massive, like we're talking 500 kilometers of running per week.
Whoa.
And my body really was never the same afterwards. I did a few more races after that in the Himalayas, which also really broke me because it was altitude. But I was never as resilient again, and I started to have all sorts of problems. I was unable to have children. My menstrual cycles were completely, out of whack. I had massive amounts of inflammation in the body because when you're pushing this hard, it's an oxidative stress. Exercise is an oxidative stress.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want people to realize is that, yes, there are times when you want to be pushing and performing and you want to have your adventures and live your life, and you should, but you should do it in a way that gives you time to recover after. And I was doing these back to back, week in, week out, like training like a marathon every couple of days was my training, it was just massive amounts of, and it was very one-sided. I wasn't doing the weight training. I wasn't, I just ran.
Yeah.
But this is, back in the day, we didn't really know all of the ins and outs that we know now, right? And this led to massive amounts of health problems eventually. And it wasn't until I kept going, because I'm very bloody minded and I'm very, very determined. And if I'm going to do something, I do it, right? And it wasn't until I was 48 and I was studying genetics. And I'd got into this because of my mum had a massive aneurysm, and she was left at the age of 74. And my mum had always been my biggest supporter in my whole world, and, just always supporting me in my sport. And she'd had this massive aneurysm at the age of 74, and we'd had some medical misadventures from the get-go. Mm-hmm. And that had put me on high alert that I have to take responsibility, that I have to study, that I have to do my best to bring her back. She was left with massive brain damage after the initial event. They didn't think she'd survive, but she did survive. But after 3 weeks, when she came out of the coma, there was nobody home. Like, she was like
Yeah.
massive brain damage. And so this catapulted me into the world of health and rehabilitation and trying to work the body out. And I had no medical background at that point. And I was told by the medical professionals, there's nothing you can do. The brain damage is massive. Put her into an institution and she won't be with us for very long. She could not even sit and put food in her mouth. She didn't know who she was or what she was or anything like that. And I absolutely refused to believe it. And I'd always been told, like when I was doing ultra marathons, it's impossible. You can't run across Death Valley. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I've done them anyway. And so when medical professionals told me that I could not do something and that it was impossible, that was just like a red flag to a bull, right? And this was my mum you're talking
Yeah.
about. So I'm prepared to do whatever it takes,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
Everyone
And
listening can relate to that.
yeah, exactly. And you get these diagnoses from doctors and that it's all over and this is, you know, put her in a home and there's nothing you can do. And listen, people, don't ever listen to anybody who tells you there is no way forward. They just, for them, they may not know the next step forward, but there will be somebody in this world of 8 billion people who does know. And your job is to go and find that research, find the people, find the doctors, find the right people for you. And that
Well
takes
said.
massive amount of work. So anyway, I did that. I started working with my mum. After 3 months, we managed to get her out of the hospital and actually into home. And I came across something called hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And I've seen on your Instagram, you like hyperbaric.
I got
right?
one. Yeah, I invested in one after years of using it. I got it in my garage right now. I love
Awesome.
HPOT. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so powerful.
it's
Yeah.
game changing. Like, I have a
It might be the
hyperbaric
top.
clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just
yeah.
a footnote on that, if you are an endurance athlete and wondering what can you take away right now and do, and what's the big thing, they call it nature's miracle solution. It's pressure. It's atmospheric pressure with high density of oxygen, 95% oxygen density with
Yep.
pressure around 1.6 up to 2.4 atmospheric pressure. You get in there, you're going to super saturate your body with oxygen, wound healing, stem cell activation for also healing the body. It's just so powerful. Getting rid of hypoxia, which is the lack of oxygen at a cellular level, especially around scar tissue and damage. Huge. Athletic runners, any of that. That's the one takeaway you can take right now. Go
Can
try
I have you as
HPOT.
my salesperson at my clinic, please? Because that was just gold. Like, brilliant. That's in a nutshell, right? And
Yeah.
I got into this because I didn't have a hyperbaric clinic, here in my hometown. I went to a commercial dive company of all places, and I begged them to use their hyperbaric chamber. They had a big one for divers. And the upshot of it was that after 33 treatments there, she started to respond, right? And she started to come back. Like, she started to have a couple of words, and she wasn't getting up and walking. Like, it takes time, people. Like, when you're doing hyperbaric oxygen, you have to understand you need repeated exposures to this. You're changing 8,000 genes at a time that are being turned on and off, and there are epigenetic changes happening. So you have to give it enough time. But my mum started to come back, and then I lost access to it because it had to be taken off on a contract. So then I bought one, right, and I installed it, and then I had to work out how to put her in because she was paralyzed. I couldn't, she couldn't move.
Oh my gosh. What pressure did you put her in? Because with cognitive issues, you got to be careful with that.
So we were at 1.5 because that was all we
Yep.
could access, right?
Yeah. Soft chamber?
It's a soft chamber to start. Now I've got
Yep.
a hard shell and soft chambers and rent them and, do all that. 2.0 is really good if you're going in above is you've got to be really more cautious, So
Yeah. Especially with brain
say,
trauma. Yeah.
yeah, and more so even like it's really good for cancer, or if you're dealing with wound healing, then 2 and above, or infectious diseases, those would really benefit, from being at slightly higher. But 1.5 has a lot of benefit, and for brain optimization and rehabilitation, that's actually where most of the research is at 1.5.
Yep.
So it's a really good, middle of the road for people who want to be safe at home. Doing hyperbaric is the sort of safe zone for people for longevity and health optimization. Anyway, coming back to the story, it took, hyperbaric was the first thing, and then I studied everything else. And in my journey, I studied genetics, and I did my own genetics, and I, got qualified in genetics and did all that. And I helped my mum get the right diet. Now, she'd always been hugely overweight, always looking after the kids. Mums, they don't look after themselves, they look after the kids. Yeah. And so I now had a toolkit of how to operate her body. When I got the genetics done, I was able to understand what would be the right diet, what time she should eat, what type of exercise I should do with her within the bounds of her limitations, obviously. And so that was a part of her rehabilitation. Now, just stepping back a bit in my life, I did my own genetics, and
Yeah.
I started to realize I had a set of genetics that were not suited to the extreme endurance that I was doing, and that I was going to have a shorter life if I carried on the way I was carrying on.
Yeah.
I had a gene called the 9p21 gene, which is I had a 6G variant, which means that the linings of my blood vessels are very easily inflamed. So this has ramifications for everything from stroke, from heart disease, aneurysms. That's why so many in my family had died of aneurysms. My father died of an aneurysm. My mum had one. My auntie, my grandfather, etc. So when I learned this one piece of information, let alone the rest, that was like, okay, game over. I'm not doing ultra marathons anymore, because ultra marathons cause massive inflammation. Right.
Wow.
So if I didn't
Yeah.
want to die of an aneurysm or a stroke, then I decided I'm going to change my lifestyle. Now I've changed it to my genetics, if that makes sense.
I love that. And I think a big takeaway is you found that this specifically wasn't going to be good for you on a gene lab test. And we all have to ask ourselves, is our athletic efforts, is it really helping us or hurting us, and our real long-term goals? And there was that catalyst there to say, I need to switch this, I need to balance this, or I need to stop some of this because it's no longer supporting my priorities. I think that's really big. What is your priority in your fitness? And I think a lot of us who, we have different levels. I do this because I make money as an athlete. I'm a cricket player. I'm an NBA player. I'm a soccer player, football player, all these things. What's your why and what's the balance? How hard do you have to work to get what you need or achieve the passion? And how do you balance that? And one of the things about running is that's a state of hemosis. And hemosis is it's an environmental stress usually, or a stress you put on your body. And your body can respond to that by getting stronger. Like if you punch a bag, you'll get micro breaks in your wrists and around your knuckles, but over time it'll become stronger. If you do it too much, you'll actually just break your wrist.
Exactly.
So you have to watch that level of stress,
It's
that hermosis on your body. Fasting's hermosis, sauna's hermosis, cold therapy's hermosis, long distance running. The problem is the body doesn't have that time to recover. And so that's where you have to, number one, is your body recovering, and what are you going to do to recover? First thing we want to talk about today, HBOT. You got to look at nature's miracle solution. Oxygen plus atmospheric pressure. It's my favorite one. I mean, I've done sauna and red light and cold plunge, and I've done peptides, and I've done mesenchymal stem cells and all this stuff. HBOT, it's just nature. It's just nature.
Just more oxygen.
Where there's oxygen, cancer cannot thrive. Inflammation cannot thrive. And one of the problems, if you've got a bad knee, a bad shoulder, you've got head issues, you most likely have hypoxia because of the scar tissue, because of the lack of blood flow, which you need, right? Your lymphatic system working, blood pressure proper. The lack of blood flow, you can't get oxygen to those areas that are damaged. What her mom most likely got through the pressure and through that 92, 95% oxygen density was oxygen finally getting to the brain, helping it to repair.
Yep.
And that's what she couldn't get.
Like you get 10 times the amount of oxygen, roughly, like 10, 12 times, depending on the depth that you're going to, right? And it crosses the blood-brain barrier. So if you've got brain damage, right? And when you have brain damage, you have this cascade of immune reaction, and you have like inflammation massively, which causes swelling. And that's why in the initial event, like when I work a lot with people with dementia and Alzheimer's and brain injuries because of my experiences. And we're not handling them right. We're telling them to go and lie in a dark room and we should be having them on a keto diet and for a little while. Like, it's not for everybody and everything. Keto,
but some time.
For brain
Ketosis.
injuries. Having ketones, exogenous ketones was another favorite of mine to help the brain heal. We should be having the right supplements, fish oils, plasmalogens, other things that are really beneficial for helping rehab the brain. Hyperbaric oxygen, exercise can be very, very powerful for people with brain injuries. So there's lots of things that are just not talked about, right? And this is right across the board in our medical world. It's all about what drug are you getting and not about the lifestyle change. I just put up on my Instagram an awesome meme that's got a line of people there's two shops. One's pills and surgery, and the other's lifestyle change. And there's nobody in front of the lifestyle change shop, right? Because
that's changing. Everyone on this calls, everyone listening to this right now is in that lifestyle
preaching
line.
to the choir.
You are preaching to the choir here a little bit, but the benefit here is, how are you going to respond and balance the life you're living? So when you're in exercise, when you're pushing yourself to this level, it's not that you have to stop. You have to get in better balance, and you have to have a smarter plan of understanding what's doing what: nutrition, supplements, alternative biohacking like HBOT or hyperbaric oxygen therapy. The one thing is it's tough to get around the world and it's expensive, but luckily if you live in a major city, you can find it. If for gut health issues, I usually like to get 1.6 or higher too. I keep mine at 2 atmospheric pressure, 60 minutes. And then I have an oxygen concentrator so that I can get that large flow of oxygen even at that depth of 2.0. But I started off at 1.3 and then worked to 1.6, 1.8, 2.0. And it works so well. I mean, if you can it works great with nutrition. It works great with breath work or nervous system regulation. It works great with peptides. Works great with mitochondria function. It's everything.
Start stacking, right? When you start stacking these things, and this is the power. Like coming back briefly to my mum's story, she was written off. Like there's nothing you can do. She's never going to have any cognition of any sort again, right? And it took me 2.5 years, and I didn't know back then as I was learning. I was just on my learning journey as much as I know now. Mm-hmm. And I'm still learning, and I'm still putting new things into her protocol. And she's sitting next to me in the room on her exercycle, right? Wow. And she's had not only this aneurysm, and it took me 2.5 years to get her back from being like a baby with hardly any higher function at all to having her full driver's license, her full power of attorney, full independence back in 2.5 years. A medical miracle, right?
How old is she?
She was 74. Now she's 83. So this is 9 years or 9.5 years.
So wait a minute. How did you get her into a chamber? Because I know there's others thinking they're like, man, I'd love to do something like this for my really mom hard. Or dad or my grandpa. Yeah, I mean, you got to pick that dead weight up, and then if something goes wrong, she's in a pressurized chamber. That's scary.
But hey, dying is scary, right? You're on the risk curve, right? When you're close to dying, you've got to take risk. You've got to go out on the risk curve, right? And hyperbaric is really pretty bloody safe. Like there's a few incidences and things, but like it's pretty safe. And I didn't have any other options. What I did is I got in the beginning, and I had a soft shell, which are really hard to get into, right? At the beginning, got a lift, the lift that they use in the hospital where they lift you up and they hold you, because she was paralyzed, right? Yeah. And I had to put her in, and then I would get her in and I'd get it all sealed up, and then she would, as she started to move her hands, she kept taking the mask off. So I had to unzip her and do, we went through all sorts of dramas, and now she's sneezing over in the corner. Sorry about that. But this was amazing. And then the genetics, the ketone, the keto diet, the supplements, and there was all of this thing, right? And then 4 years ago, after she got everything back, she got hit with brain cancer. So half of her face dropped. I raced her to the hospital. I thought she was having a stroke. They wouldn't help us. They said, no, there's nothing wrong. It took me 3 weeks over here because our system is really bad over here. I don't know what it's like with you guys, but it took me 3 weeks to fight to get an MRI for her. And eventually I got it, and she had brain tumors, like cancer right throughout the brain, like massive. Half of the brain was covered in tumors. And probably, after so she had what's called a CNS lymphoma, which is a central nervous system lymphoma. Could have been caused by the trauma of the aneurysms, or could have been Epstein-Barr, could have been any number of things. There was a few things that could have caused this. And at that point, I chased this neurosurgeon around until I got him. He's the one that operated on her originally, and he agreed to take this big one tumor out that was taking up like the size of a grapefruit in her brain. They took that out. They did the pathology, and they said, "Look, this is a very aggressive CNS lymphoma, B-cell lymphoma. You're not ever, there's nothing we can do. There's no options. There's no chemo. There's nothing that would help her because she's too old and she's too frail, and so on and so forth." Once again, I just went, I'm not I'm not sitting back and letting this happen. I'm going to, if we're going to go down, we're going to go down fighting, because that's who we are. And so I went and did the metabolic approach to cancer. I went and interviewed 21 of the world's top people in the metabolic, because I have a podcast like you. I get to talk to some pretty cool people. I put a team of 15 doctors on her team. We did everything from peptides. I did advanced genetic testing that showed me which chemotherapies and which immunotherapies to go after, as well as which supplements. And because we were at that you've got weeks to live stage, I did throw both sides at it. I threw the chemo at it as well as but you never just want to do just chemo. Like, it's never going to fix. It can debulk for the initial time when you need it to be debulked, but you always want to be following it up as to what was the terrain that caused this cancer? Where did it come from? And how do you stop it coming back? So it took me 12 weeks. We got rid of all of the tumors on the MRI, because that's the only way we can see. And we've been cancer-free now for 4 years, touch wood. You never want to say you're cured. Yeah, you never want to say you're cured, right? Because cancer's a beast, and it can
let the
change
trauma
its
go.
metabolism. Yeah, but
let the language flow.
Yeah, and I like she's had many other issues. She broke her hip last year. Most people over the age of 80 don't survive a hip break. She's had sepsis earlier this year.
You've just been the daughter of the century, just making sure mom, and just, I mean, it's amazing what you've been able to accomplish and what you've been able to do outside of what was told. There were multiple times nothing can be done.
100 times.
But what happened, I mean,
times.
When we get back to, your athletic career and what you were doing and how you were moving forward, it's one thing to even try to take care of someone when you're trying to, you have your own health. I mean, I'm sure you're not running 100 miles a week anymore, but
no.
you're still exercising, you're still performing, you still have your athletic side, and then you're dealing with this full-time job of caretaking.
Yep.
How did you start to balance and repair your own health while you continued with your own fitness, and how did you find that balance? What were some other keys? And I think you've already touched on a few of them that can be really important, short-term ketosis or ketogenic diet, or, what else were some pivotal things for you personally?
Yeah. I mean, I've really massive stresses, right? Like looking after her, losing my dad 4 years ago. We lost a baby as well. I've been through hell in the last 10 years, and, just say it as it is, it's really
Sorry
hell.
to hear that.
But if I hadn't had my background as an ultramarathon runner, where I learned to just push through and keep going, and yes, there's hardly a day I don't cry. There's hardly a day when I'm not, on the floor, going, what the hell, what happened? And how did I get here? But I get up every day, I fight every day, I keep moving forward, and I keep believing, and I keep hoping, and I keep that optimistic mindset, right? And when you have a mission on, and my mission is, I've got my business missions, I've got my athletic missions for myself, and I've got my mum, who, does need a lot of attention now. But that means that I have to be super disciplined in the inputs that I put into my body, in the routines that I set up for myself. So my, morning routine already starts out, I'm taking my HRV in the morning, I'm looking at what my heart rate variability is doing, I'm having a cold shower, I'm doing my breath work before I even get out of the bedroom door. And then it's, an hour and a half of mum and getting her protocol. Her protocol is mind-blowingly extensive.
I have a client just like that who deals with her mother at 85 years old, and we've worked on an extremely specific protocol. So I completely understand what you're saying there. But I love that you're getting up and you're take caring yourself. So she's doing another version of a environmental hypnosis, which is that cold therapy to shock the system, to reduce inflammation. That can help with arthritic pains. That can help reset your mood. It can help boost dopamine for the day. It can be so good if you're down, if you're running those long, or you're just tired, or you're feeling like you're not getting where you want with it as a D1 athlete, or as a professional athlete, or just someone who wants to get better in the gym. That cold therapy can be so great. You can even just put your face in some cold water. Just get some ice. Your face. 30 seconds, 20-second breath, just face. It can do wonders for that dopamine. It can do wonders for your nervous system and reset it. It's a fantastic protocol to reset yourself, because I think that's really what's big here. What can I do to keep after my goals? And I think you're saying it big. You've got big goals for your mom, for yourself, for your athletic career, your business career, and you're waking up with still a lot of pain from what's happened in life. So it's trauma, trauma, pain. So that it's how do I defend against my feelings
Yep.
right? And I think that's a really big one. Like if we're feeling overwhelmed with everything going on in our life, cold
And
plunge.
who isn't?
Cold plunge will change. You will forget your problems about 15 seconds into that cold shower. Yeah. You'll be like, what was I saying? What was I saying? I can't remember what I was thinking.
It snaps you out, right? It snaps you out of that negativity. And it's horrible. Like I don't enjoy it, but I do it every day. And it would be better
Sounds
to
like
be
Joe
fully
Rogan.
immersed.
I don't enjoy it, but I do it every day.
But I do it. Yeah. And that's the discipline of an athlete like Joe Rogan,
That is the
right?
discipline. Yep.
And this is what, like the people that I work with now, the ones who have been athletes at some point in their life are the ones who have much more success because they know how to push through the pain. They know how to keep going when it's tough. They know how to work through, negative reactions of the body for a starter as you start to adapt, because when you like Herxheimer reactions, or they're not immediately freaked out that they're having a Herxheimer reaction or whatever. They're like, yay, it's working. Something's happening. Whereas another person will be like, I'm never touching that again. I took a pill and it did something. And, or going to the gym and my muscles are sore. I can't possibly cope. It's like, harden up, like you have to develop a certain level of toughness, and I'm not promoting the David Goggins, who I know because we've raced in Death Valley, I'm not promoting that type of toughness where it's just, go hard or go home. And I think
you've got to be able to climb the mountain, though. You've got to.
But you have
push.
to, yes. You've got to push, and then you've got to recover, and you've got to have your outlets for your emotions and stuff, and you've got to have a network, a support network. All of these aspects that goes into a good life, right?
Lisa, I love what you're saying, and I just want to echo that really quick. What allowed you to be successful as an athlete? You have to be aware of what's hurting you in your life, and take that same discipline, that same willingness, and put it towards your body, your organs, your function, your detox pathways. Put it towards the discipline of what you're learning here. Like what allowed you to be successful in your athletic career. Just
absolutely. 100%.
Copy and paste.
Copy and paste. It's a different, if it's a different genre, it's a different, discipline, but it's the same. Like every day, like you, I spend hours studying.
Yeah.
If I'm in the car, I'm listening to a podcast, or if I'm running, I'm listening to a lecture or whatever. There are never a day, or there is never a moment when I'm not pushing forward. Like I do prioritize a little bit of relaxation time because you need that as well, right?
Well, that's part of what we're learning today.
Yeah.
You can work at healing. It takes work to heal.
Oh yeah.
It's not just sit in your pajamas and don't go for a run at 6:30 in the morning. There's effort there.
No, it's huge.
Learn it and actively train on how to balance and heal. Take the same mindset and put it towards how am I going to heal? How am I going to balance? Not just get mad at your body. I think a lot of athletes just get mad at their body. Oh, other people are pushing through. Other people don't have to do this. Why'd my knee give out? Oh, it had to be my knee. It's like if I didn't have my body, and then we start getting angry and we start rejecting our body because it can't do what we think everyone else can do without the problems.
That's why I love genetics, right? Because when I did genetics, it gave me permission to be me.
Well said.
Because I understood what would work for me and what wouldn't work for me personally. And when I'm working with someone, like we all have these, I want to look like that and I want to be like that. And that's sometimes completely unrealistic because you've got a different set of genetics. Well, when you understand how to use your genetics right. So now, like I do a lot of CrossFit, I do a lot of yoga because I have to calm my system down because I got a lot of adrenaline, so I know the nuance of operating my body now. I had lots of weight problems when I was younger. I was just that 5 kilos overweight for a runner, like not fat, but not, just not light enough. And I'm like, of Māori descent. We're, strong people. We're quite muscular people. And now I do what is right for my body. And I'm leaner, got a 6-pack at 56, like a menopausal woman. I'm not saying like every 56-year-old woman has to have a 6-pack.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, the metabolic changes that happen in your 40s and into your 50s can really derail you. And I see so many ladies struggling with putting on weight when they're doing the same diet or the better diet and they're training harder and they're doing the things and they're not getting any results. Go and have a look at your microbiome, go and look at your gut health, and go and look at your genetics. Wow. Those are the 3 things that I'd be looking at first to see. And then there are other, heavy metals and other things that could be causing issues or whatever. But those are your baseline. Always look at your gut, because under the hood, there could be all sorts, as you know, of problems that are causing you to not lose weight or not have an optimal metabolic state, hormonal problems, etc.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Or not have the energy, or be dealing with anxiety, could also be gut related.
Or
I mean,
from
everything's
gut,
connected.
absolutely.
And everything's connected to the gut. Like, you can't have a healthy gut without a healthy liver or healthy drainage pathways, right?
Yep.
And if you don't have a healthy
Absolutely.
microbiome, you're not going to be able to create that dopamine. You're not going to be able to break down your fat soluble vitamins, right? You're going to be more likely to have urgency and diarrhea. You're not going to gain weight and be able to utilize all those proteins and amino acids without a strong microbiome and a healthy mucosal membrane.
Amen.
You can't,
You're
you can't,
preaching to the choir.
right? And
Yeah,
so,
I
and
love
one
it.
thing you said, I think, is a really big point I think people should note right now is, you said the gene test is what changed. And I almost have put myself in your shoes for a second. I was, wait a minute, here's the most dedicated and gung-ho woman, like top 0.0%. And it's like, why? Because every other problem was an excuse that you could fix, but you couldn't change your genes. It's like,
No,
wait, this is
I have
me.
to work with them.
Permission for me. Like, I had to give myself permission to say, this is not good for me. And my gene test was that permission. Like, these are my genes.
Yeah.
This is not an excuse. This is a reality. And that's what finally changed it for you. Because I'm sure my hip's bad, my knee's bad, my back's bad. I don't feel energetic. It was suck it up. You can do it. Suck it up.
Yeah.
You could. And this was like, no, that's me.
Yeah,
That's actually me.
and seeing the results of someone having had an aneurysm, and the risk factors that I had. It wasn't just that one gene. There's a number of things in the mix there, but genetics is also the power of genetics is that it pulls, it loads the gun, but it's the environment that pulls the trigger. So you can have the set of genes, but it's the environment that I put my body in as to whether those genes are going to express in a negative way or not, right? So I can very much influence. It's not a destiny. It's not like, okay, you've got this 9p21 problem gene. Your arteries are easily inflamed. You've got very poor linings, etc. Right? Okay. Now, if I put lots of omega-3 fish oils in, and I detox, and I don't drink alcohol, and I, don't eat crap fats and all these things, then I'm not going to be that victim of that aneurysm.
Those genes won't express. Yeah.
They won't express because I'm keeping an eye on them, and I can get scans because I know of this risk factor, right? So I can make sure that the doctors are keeping an eye on doing MRIs or whatever I need. So that's empowering. And then I can also do all these lifestyle factors that are going to mitigate at least the chances of that, So, and this one particular gene also leads to a number of types of cancers as a much higher risk for these, But that's not frightening information for me. That's empowering, because then I can do something about it now, right, and avoid the consequences. And so putting the head in the sand approach doesn't work, right? People, you like when you put your head in the sand, because I don't want to know, because I don't want to look under the hood, because I don't want to. Nah, that's not going to work, because then it will get you, because you'll not catch it.
Well, that's amazing. I want to talk about 3 other things on my mind right now to really support people who are in their athletic careers, trying to find balance, trying to heal their gut and optimize so they can do those things, right? So they can go work out or gain weight or build muscle or be able to run that triathlon. Adrenal glands, talking about the benefit of that. And then I want to dive into a bit about nutrition. And then what supplements have you found? Are there certain ones people really need to keep their eye on to help support them in this process to optimize their athletic performance while they also heal at the same time, which is very difficult to do?
Yeah.
But,
So
how did you, your adrenals must have been shot.
Oh yeah, they're still shot. To be honest, like it's still a work in progress, a constant work in progress, because of the amount of things I have to do in a day is pretty ridiculous. And it's 24/7, because I have to get up to my mum 3 or 4 times a night. So sleep deprivation, all of those things don't help. But I have to do them, right? That's just non-negotiable. So I do what I can do to support the adrenals. So I love getting things like Himalayan salt. I use Adrenal Rebuilder, which is a great supplement here. There's, again, coming back to the gut, you want to have a look at, your secretory IgA levels. Are they low? If they're low, then your adrenals are likely to be problematic. If your adrenals are having issues, then you want to be doing a cortisol, a 24-hour cortisol test, maybe, to have a look at what your adrenals are doing. Are you producing cortisol in the morning? Have you got the right sort of cortisol curve over the day or not? If you don't, then you might want to be looking at, how do I change that? Like getting early morning sunshine on your eyes, for example.
That
Like I'm
natural
sitting under a
infrared.
daylight lamp because I'm, working and I can't be outside right now. But if you can go and get like 20 minutes of daylight at the beginning of the day, or 10 minutes, whatever you can manage, have your cup of tea outside or something. It resets that circadian rhythm. And then avoiding blue light at night to help with the adrenal function, so that you're getting the right inputs. Like, think of yourself as a cave person, man or woman, like we've evolved. We have to look at our evolutionary biology and respect that. We live in this artificial environment now, which is nice and comfy, but the blue lights that we're exposed to at nighttime, that sort of thing is really problematic, right? So we want to like I wear blue light blocking glasses at night. I dim the lights in my house. I have, turning the Wi-Fi off at night, all of those sorts of things that you can do to support your adrenals, your circadian rhythms, your body's healing process. I have a very strict sleep routine. It sort of starts a couple of hours before I go to bed, where I'm sort of having things like chamomile tea, and I'm doing some gentle yoga, and I have a pulsed electromagnetic frequency mat that I lie on for half an hour, and all of these little things. You might not have that, but you might be able to put your feet up against a wall. That turns on your parasympathetic nervous system, helps calm your brain. I have a red light helmet, so I put it on 10 hertz.
So you've got it. You've got it all. I mean,
I've got dialed in.
But
I'm a biohacking fiend, right?
There you go. Well, for anyone who doesn't know, adrenal glands help regulate your stress hormone. They help your body get into drive and go do what you want to do, and they help regulate an inflammatory response under stress or under trauma. And so this is something that when you are doing an ultra marathon or doing more, I see everyone miss this. You need to take extra adrenal support when you're pushing your body beyond what it's been conditioned to do.
Yeah.
So rhodiola, B vitamins, ashwagandha. Beautiful.
Vitamin C, vitamin C.
I love the liposomal, especially because it won't cause the diarrhea, right? The liposomal, and it's more bioavailable. Do that in the morning. And if you're really under stress, adrenal glandulars, you can actually take the glandulars, and it's better than a cup of coffee. It will change your life. This is so good. Coming off steroids, if you're coming off prednisone and you're an athlete, adrenal support. It is missed. It is not talked about enough. It is a massive value for any athlete, any endurance person, anyone under great amounts of stress.
It takes a good 6 months to reset. Like you really need, like I really love Live On vitamin C, the liposomal. You got to make sure that you got a quality, because everybody's claiming liposomal when they're not. So you just got to make sure you get a good one, right?
Yeah.
Because the liposomals are almost as good as having an IV of vitamin C. I've had Dr. Thomas Levy on my show, and he's a cardiologist, and he's written a book on vitamin C called Curing the Incurable, a brilliant book to go and read. Beautiful. And liposomal ones get into the cell without any expenditure of energy. So really, really good. I've got a company called Avum Labs, and we've been working on a formulation for the last 2 years called Rejuvenate Pro. And this is a gut health and immune health. So I was realizing that there was the immune system is at the base of all aging. It's at the base of all the hallmarks of aging, right? It affects all the hallmarks. So as we get older, our immune system starts to age. Our lymphocyte count goes down. The thymus gland, which is a big gland in our chest, starts to involute already from puberty onwards. So by the time you're my age, it's not working anymore very much. So the thymus is your university for your T cells. It helps you respond to pathogens that are coming in and create antibodies. And we don't have this anymore by the time you're my age, right? So we started working on a formulation with a really world-class team of regenerative medicine specialists and scientists and so on. And we've put together a formulation that has got something called immune defense proteins in it, which is a suite of 50 bioactive whey proteins from New Zealand cows. And these really have been shown to decrease leaky gut. So that's a really, as you know, leaky gut is absolutely crucial that you have.
Core
It's
problem.
also
Yeah.
an absolute core problem. So that's one of the things. It lowers all the inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF alpha and interleukin 1 beta. And then there's another part of it that's called another ingredient that we have called immunel, which is an extract of colostrum. So colostrum is the first food of mammals. It's a superfood, but it also has a lot of fat and sugar and so on. And so we've found we've got a ingredient in our formulation that's taken all the powerhouse stuff out of colostrum, the transfer factors, the immunoglobulins, the growth factors, IGF-1, all of that sort of part of it, taken that out and taken out the fat and the lactose and the stuff that you don't want. So, and we put these together, and the synergy of these two together is just super powerful. And then we've got a New Zealand herbal called kawakawa, which is what's known as for Maori people, because I'm of Maori descent. This has been used traditionally as a gut health medicinal plant, and that upregulates all your endogenous antioxidant capacity. So your NRF2 pathway, which you may know about, that's your own antioxidant production. So not just putting antioxidants in, but your body can produce its own antioxidants. And so kawakawa and the fourth ingredient, carnosic acid, both upregulate the NRF2 pathway, which really helps. And the carnosic acid, which is the fourth thing, also helps reduce something called CXCL9. So I've had on my show Dr. David Furman from the Stanford University and the Buck Institute's 1000 Immunomes project. Mm-hmm. And they've spent the last 15 years, they've done the world's largest immunology study. And we've used their studies as the basis for our formulation. Recognizing that immunosenescence is at the basis. And if we can really attack immunosenescence, we will age slower. We will be able to really. And so CXCL9 is one of the proteins that they identified in their 15-year study that they measure in their iAge test. This is a test that's coming to market right now. And this is an age test, like you've seen the DNA methylation tests and so on. But this one is a direct measurement of proteins in the blood, which gives us direct ability to change those proteins by supplements, by lifestyle, and then measure them. One of the major proteins that's coming out is called CXCL9. And one of the only things in the world that lowers that is carnosic acid. So our formulation has got all of these four. So it's hitting the gut health. It supports bifido and lactobacillus. It helps with the leaky gut, the tight junctions. Beautiful. It helps with the secretory IgA and the adrenal autoimmune diseases, that type of thing. It helps with thymic, the architecture of the thymus to help the thymus produce T cells that can actually respond to antibodies and so on. I mean, I could lecture for hours on this, but that's
the name of the product? Is it already out?
Yeah, it's out. So it's out in New Zealand, and it's called Rejuvenate Pro.
Okay.
And it's
guys,
on
we're going to put a link right below. We're going to put a link for you to check this out.
And I'm going to send you a couple of bottles to try, Dane, because I want you to maybe look at your own markers and look for your lymphocyte count going up. If you're doing microbiome, look for your zonulin levels going down, your calprotectin going down, your secretory IgA going up. If you take this, so it's I'm not pushing this product.
We want results. We all want to consider what's going to actually work and why. So guys, just to bring it down to layman's term, what she's talking about, it's all beautiful stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
Calprotectin, your inflammation specifically in your bowel, more predominantly the 8 to 10 feet in your colon. That's also going to be really important. You're getting that urgency, that diarrhea. You're getting scared as an athlete, feeling like that digestive tract's not working. Leaky gut, we talked about that being a core problem for all athletes going under that level of oxidative damage from you pushing your body. Yep. Healing the gut lining is very pivotal. One of the key aspects to that is reducing a protein your body makes called zonulin. That zonulin, when it's made, is to help repair that gut lining. So lower zonulin means your gut lining's nice and calm. You'll probably get less bloating, less cramping, better looking bowel movements. So how can you reduce that zonulin? Secretory IgA are immunocells that protect your gut lining from invaders and also strengthen that gut lining as well. So it's called secretory IgA. You can find these in a stool test. So any kind of athlete at some point should do a non-invasive at-home stool test. Two I like the GI map, but I think a little bit better is going to be the Gut Zoomer by Vibrant America. You need a practitioner to order this for you. I'm sure Lisa could help you with this. Yep. We, our practitioners, also do this all around the world, Dubai, UK, you name it. America, of course. And so get a stool test and start as an athlete, get a stool test, see what's going on. Dysbiosis, candida, viral load, parasites, what the zonulin, okay, leaky gut, your digestion, elastase 1, pancreatic enzymes, fat malabsorption, then inflammatory markers, okay? High amounts of EAP, eosinophil activation proteins, calprotectin, lactoferrin, things like this are going to be key. And she's saying that this product can help with all of this.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
lactoferrin is actually, sorry to interrupt
Which can
you
be
there.
related to IBD as well.
Yeah,
Lactoferrin.
so lactoferrin is a really, really powerful, thing, but the IDP has is a much stronger version of that. So they've done clinical studies. There's 15 years worth of clinical research of comparing lactoferrin against immune defense proteins and immune defense proteins, because the lactoferrin has been taken out and purified, and it's actually the synergistic effect of the 50 bioactive whey proteins together, including the lactoferrin, that makes it more. It's like the quarterback on a football team, right?
Yeah.
It's the key. It's the star player, but you actually need the supporting players around it to make it really, really effective. And so that's why, and when you have Immunel, that's an extract that's so much more powerful. So I'm definitely going to send you a couple of bottles to try and
Now, is that like Immunolin, like a binder?
No, it's Immunel.
Immunel. Okay.
It's a different product,
Okay.
different thing.
So that'll be
I know
interesting.
That one you're talking about.
So guys, link on that. I want to caveat. I know we're running out of time, but I want to quickly move over to nutrition. I think something athletes need to do is, a lot of them are taking protein shakes. They're looking for extra protein, extra oomph. A few key hacks I think are going to really help you. Stop taking Gatorade. Number one.
Oh yeah.
My gosh.
Never ever drink
Get
Gatorade.
this trash. Get this toxic chemical trash. It is not hydrating you. It is toxic. It's going to kill your gut lining. It's going to get all these chemicals your liver and lymphatic system has to drain out. Just a simple, easy electrolytes in your water. E-Lite, a dropper of that. I love Body Bios. E-Lite, you use E-Lite too? I love E-Lite. We didn't even know that. We both use the same product.
Yeah.
E-Lite's going to be great. Check that out. And another thing is, you got to get a good protein powder. You could be taking 40 grams a day of pro-inflammatory, crappy protein. I really like hydrolyzed beef protein. People like pure paleo or just ingredients or designs for health.
That's exactly what I take.
There was a clinical research on ultra runners. They did a clinical research on. I'm sorry. They did a study where they took long distance runners and they looked what happened to the inflammation of their quads. I'll send you a link on this after this, but they looked what happened to the inflammation of their legs after running 15, 20, 25 miles, and then how the recovery went when using hemp, a vegan-based protein, whey, just a regular whey, not a whey isolate, from an A1 cow, and then they used hydrolyzed beef. And they found that the swelling and inflammation in the legs was the least with the hydrolyzed beef.
Wow.
And that the repair may have been, looked to be better with the hydrolyzed beef. And because hydrolyzed beef is going to be more bioavailable, tends to be less inflammatory, it's dairy-free, it's whey-free, it's still going to have the complete amino acid structure for your body to really build tissue, which can be a problem with the plant-based. It doesn't have lectins, phytic acid that you got to get with the vegan proteins.
Not a fan of the vegan
hydrolyzed beef, And if you can get it unflavored and you don't need the flavors, get the non-sweetened, unflavored, nothing in it, and that's going to be the purest and cleanest. And just add in a little creatine, a little amino acids, essential amino acids.
What do you use? Creatine I'm a huge fan of. Really for brain health, for Alzheimer's, for anybody who's older.
There's just no negative research on it. No. Everybody, Paul Saladino, all of them, even the vegans, all 5 grams a day. Even a female can take it. Start with sometimes you'll get swelling if you don't have your lymphatic system really working well. You can get that water weight, and that can cause a little problem for your lymphatic system for very few people. But,
and for a short time, usually, you usually adjust to it, right?
Yeah, you do.
Creatine is not only for muscle building, like we think of it just in muscle building terms, but really for brain health. It is part of the methylation process, right? When you methylate things, we actually make creatine every day, and by taking creatine, we're actually taking the load off our methylation processes, right? Because we don't have to produce. The body doesn't have to produce that 5 grams of creatine. You've given it to it. So it's like, right, I can use it for something else. So phosphatidylcholine and creatine really, 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 really.
I take PC every day.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
Oh my God. So good for your brain. So good for your gut.
Yeah.
We could keep going. I mean, there's so much you can do. Guys, I hope we're opening a can of worms for you of what you can do as an athlete or as someone for your gut. Some things we talked about today I think are really valuable. I do want to end a little bit on some nutrition, Lisa, if you have any pointers there, but you got to, get the gut zoomer, repair the gut, understand what leaky gut is, start going after that, enhance your natural digestion. The adrenals are a huge missing link. Get off the caffeine and focus on your adrenals, get the electrolytes in. Get your circadian rhythm. There's a lot you can do in your life to balance it. You can use supplements to rev yourself up as needed. And then find the big thing for me with nutrition is it needs to eliminate inflammatory response and it needs to drive the nutrients in. You need to increase nutrient absorption. You need to get rid of healthy foods that are really causing an inflammatory response for you.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're just so good at teaching. You've just put it into a can. I don't even know what to add to that, but and things like I do think our fats are really, really important to get the right combination of fats
Way
into the body,
undervalued. Yeah.
Again, there's a genetic component. So not everybody, like you hear on Instagram, everybody should be keto or everybody should. No diet is right for everybody, right?
Yeah.
You need to understand your genetics. So I might do well with saturated fats, and the person next to me doesn't do well with saturated fats, and it will put the cholesterol through the roof. Cholesterol is another whole thing. But, we want higher cholesterols than what we actually, we just don't want the bad types of cholesterols. We won't even go into that subject. Another one for athletes is potassium. We generally don't have enough potassium going in, right? And you got to be careful, but too high potassium, these electrolytes control the contractions of your muscles. Yeah. When I was 27, I nearly died of something called a tetany seizure because I'd been out in the Alaskan wilderness for 6 weeks. I hadn't eaten properly, and I had a massive depletion of potassium. Like I had a potassium level of 1.7, and the doctor had said I had something called a tetany seizure, which is when the whole body cramps. And I've seen other athletes in ultramarathons have this.
Wow.
Nearly lost a couple of friends to that. And it was just potassium. So you put potassium back in, and within half an hour I was back quite fit, but my whole body had started to cramp. So if you can imagine, the most powerful, painful thing on the planet is when your entire body, including your heart, starts to cramp. And so I was lucky that I was like 2 minutes from a hospital when this happened. And I had a paramedic I was actually in a library sheltering from the rain after coming off the mountains. And the paramedic had a gel in his pocket, which, just gave me enough sugar to keep my body operating until I got to the hospital when they did got potassium into me. But potassium generally lowers blood pressure. Like a lot of people are having blood pressure problems. Look at your potassium. Like it may be that potassium is not good enough. Your magnesium, of course, is like 300 processes or something in the body that magnesium does. It's at the top of the tree. Like if you're not having enough magnesium, which most people
no one's getting
nobody.
Enough. Especially athletes. If you're sweating, you're losing magnesium every day. Yeah, that's probably a huge secret. You're not getting enough, and it's leaching from your bones and muscles.
Yes. And your bone, like it's this DNA repair, all these things that magnesium is responsible for. The brain, calming the brain. I love magnesium 3 and 8 for that. So there's different types of magnesium that you want to use for different reasons. Whether you're an athlete, you might want to be looking at taurate or malate or bisglycinate for systemic. If you've got digestion problems, you can, if you're constipated, maybe the oxides. But generally the oxides are no good because they're not bioavailable, right?
Yeah.
But they do help with moving the bowel if you're having trouble in that department.
There's this one, I know we're just out of time, but there's one thing with the magnesium. I mean, look, you can get this from food. This is about a reason to have a banana. This is a reason to have some avocado,
and
have a few raw sprouted nuts that are going to be more bioavailable and reduce inflammatory response. They're going to help with that. But there's this company called Upgraded Formulas. If you don't know them, you should check them out. But they've got this nano-sized magnesium with B6, P5P in it. And it's specifically for headaches and cramping. It's so good. So it's going to bypass the digestion. So it's almost like the liposomal when you use nano mineral.
Yeah.
So it's a nano magnesium chloride, and it will go right into the body. Then it uses the P5P, B6 to help drive it into the cell. And it really helps calm down the muscles from those cramps. That's going to be so good for runners with the calves, with the knees. I also love a little boron. Boron can be really great for strengthening the bone. So all those shin splints and those knee problems from all that running, most soils are deficient in boron, so we're not getting enough. There's a great nano product called Bone Matrix by a woman named Jeannie Patel, who's got it's got the boron, the silica, the magnesium, the potassium. Those are the main ones, and sodium,
Wow.
right? You need good ratios of potassium and sodium.
Yeah, you
You're
do.
not getting enough magnesium. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
Magnesium is also going to be great for your fat solubles K2 and D to help convert that D into 25-OH. So it all gets together. Get your minerals right. You look for this stuff in food. You're like, oh, I'm going to be eating these things. I know bananas can spike your sugar. That might be good for you at certain times. And, but that can be a great source for certain minerals and electrolytes. Maybe some coconut water when it makes sense for you. Maybe lemon juice. I just take some salt too, Lisa.
Yes,
I just put
Himalayan
salt.
or
I just
Celtic
put
salt. Absolutely.
Yep, just put some salt right in your water.
Salt.
Just a little pinch, like a little
Every
pinch
morning,
with some lemon
especially
juice
your
and apple cider
adrenals too.
vinegar.
Apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because if you're
we
worried
do the
about
same thing.
and see, guys, this is how much you can hack your health. Even if you're going, well, I don't want the glucose spike. Take the ACV with the lemon juice, then go have the fruit, and you'll get half the spike.
It's so good.
Taking apple cider vinegar before any fruits will drastically lower your glucose spikes.
Yeah. And then there's things like berberine and things like, what's your take on berberine, like for supporting the blood glucose and the gut health?
Yeah.
As well?
You know what I've found to really even work like magic is arlipoic acid.
Oh yeah.
I've seen glucose monitors just stagnant.
Yeah.
With the RLA. Or the ALA is a weaker version, but the RLA. I mean, there's so many things. So I think the big thing here, guys, is look at Pandora's box here. You're not
and learn.
Yeah, you can learn, you can grow. Share this, like this if you found it valuable. Make sure you follow Lisa if you want to learn more. If you're obviously if you're someone trying to help out who's over 60 and had those female issues, you're trying to get back into your endurance world, I think she can really help. And it's all connected. And whether it's the gut, the liver, the brain, you have to work on all of it. Right. But the gut is so important no matter what you want to do.
Stop.
And if you're suffering as an athlete and you do these things, you might find that now you have an edge on everyone else because you took the time to really learn how to biohack yourself.
Yeah, I mean, this is so.
Lisa, any last words?
Oh yeah, you're super powerful. Fantastic knowledge. We agree 100% on everything. It's quite funny. We're taking the same things, doing the same things by the sound of it.
Yep.
And I'm really looking forward to having you on my show, Pushing the Limits. And I'd love everyone to come over to Pushing the Limits and listen, or on YouTube. I'm on YouTube as well. And yeah, reach out to me if you want. I've got a whole lot of books. I do courses. I do hyperbaric if you're here over in my town, but all of that sort of stuff. But I just want to say, amazing, your journey is incredible. I can't wait to interview you on my show to share your insights so that we can do a deep dive into your experiences. And thank you very much, Dane. It's been fabulous.
Thank you so much, Leah. Guys, links below. Happy healing. Talk soon.